I want to begin this session by first asking Manish Tiwari to explain to the audience in the India Today conclave about the idea of India, the future of India. How is it, as someone in government, given the problems that have surfaced over the last several months and years, what is your idea of India going forward, Manish?
Thank you, Rahul. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I don't think the idea of India requires any redefinition. The idea of India, grounded as it is in the pluralistic ethos and the fundamental postulates which were hammered down by the makers of the Constitution 60 years ago, still hold India in good stead and would continue to hold India in good stead as we go into the next 2 decades of our growth trajectory. If I were to extrapolate from 2012 to 2032, what do I see the next 2 decades like? And I see the next 2 decades as the space that we have for consolidation. We have serious challenges of illiteracy, of poverty, of the proliferation of education, internal security that we need to contend with. And therefore, it is very important that in the next 2 decades, we try and build a multi-partisan consensus to see as to some of these issues which are endemic, which of course have political connotations, but can we evolve a minimalist consensus in order to surmount that? We also, during this phase of the next 2 decades, require peace and tranquility in our neighborhood. There is a need to engage. There is a need to be responsive without letting your guard down. And that is the manner in which, as we go forth, we would be able to translate this Asian century, or what has been called the Asian century, into somewhat of an Indian century also.
Smriti, when people talk about all the scams and the allegations that have confronted UPA, they also look at the BJP and see pretty much the same thing happening in your party as well, and wonder whether the BJP's idea of India is any different from the Congress's idea of India, or is it just the same thing?
Thanks, Rahul. I very closely listened to what Manish's idea of India is in the next few years. And I've heard deliberations over the day in your conclave with regards to the aspirations of the youth and what the future awaits. I think that there are certain realities today that one needs to confront. You speak about a youth which is aware. You speak about a youth which is not anymore indulging in the chalta hai attitude. And I think that when that youth looks upon the challenges that India has today, they find that while Manish speaks about the century of Asia, they find that 50% of Asia's poor reside in India. They also find that as of this day, 460 million Indians are either underemployed or unemployed. And they wonder at times whether we are applying ourselves to the challenges today so that we can make a better future for them. When I spoke to a few people before I came to the conclave, there was one central theme that came from the youth that I engaged with. They told me that whenever there is a conversation about the youth in our country, it's mostly urban-centric. We fail to realize that 2/3 of our country's youth resides in the 600,000 villages that we have in our country today. So when we talk about their aspirations, that youngster who is not necessarily uneducated or illiterate, that youngster asks us as to why after 6.5 decades of independence, as of this day, we do not have an agricultural scientist in every district. Why is it that we have lost 14 million jobs in the sector of agriculture? And why would a youngster then aspire to be a farmer in our country? So while we are talking about the challenges or we are hopeful about the future, we also need to realize in a country of 1.2 billion people today, when you talk about the youth, you also talk about the challenges that possibly await them in the health sector. And in a billion-plus country, we have only 7 lakh doctors. I had the opportunity of speaking to Dr. Swaminathan, and I said that today the one topic that the youth debates intensely is the race for globally for food security, for water security. And we all know that only those who are best prepared will win this race. And I asked Dr. Swaminathan that when the youth interacts with you, what do they ask? And he told me that we all know that India awaits a future where possibly in our country temperatures will rise due to global warming from 3 to 5 degrees centigrade. And with every degree of change in temperature, our wheat production will decline by 6 million tons. So I asked him, sir, did you propose any kind of solution? And he surprisingly told me that I've been proposing solutions since 1970s. And I've been saying that we need 128 agroclimatic zones. We need to reserve our seeds. We need to increase our yield. And I often wondered, Rahul, that we do have solutions that have presented themselves before. Why is it that we have failed in implementing them? I'm sure that you had panelists today who spoke about India as one of the largest emerging markets which will fuel consumption the world over. And I've always wondered that we are a very talented and hardworking people. Why have we not been able to fuel our productivity, our production capabilities? Why is it that even in this day and age, we're talking about 80% of projects which are stalled? So when you talk about the difference between the Congress and the BJP's approach towards the challenges that the future poses before us, I think today your theme is reinventing democracy. What the youth is saying is that it's not democracy that has failed us, it is the government. So we need to reinvent governance. And we need to address issues of governance. The youth wants to be proactive, not only wants to compete equally, but also contribute equally. So I think the one thing that distinguishes BJP is the fact that we have always believed in minimum government and maximum governance. And I think that is the mantra of the future.
Thank you very much, Smriti. With a lot of the smaller regional players, Harsimrat, we've seen in the past that they're more interested in preserving their own fiefdoms. They're more interested in growing their own wealth. They're more interested in the local areas that they focus on and not so much bothered about the idea of India and where the country is going. That seems too far away, at least in the actions of several of the parties, not necessarily just the Akali Dals. What is your idea, given where you come from, of the idea of India going forward, and how can your party contribute to this?
Good evening, everybody. I think it's really unfair to say that some of the leadership is just interested in forwarding their own case, because I think if that was the case, governments would not be repeated the way that they are being repeated, because unless they meet the aspirations of the people are going to throw them out, which they should as well. And if you look at politics as a whole, in the last couple of years, the dynamics is changing. Politics is becoming a lot more regionalized because our country is so diverse that every area has its own regional issues. And the bigger parties, I feel, are just addressing issues at large or as a whole, whereas the problems, the aspirations, the requirements are very state-centric and regional-centric, which it needs to go into more detail and to a more grassroots, thorough level, which is what the regional parties are doing. And that is the reason that regional parties are faring better, I would say, than what the bigger parties are doing. And the bigger parties are now kind of becoming dependent on the regional parties as the politics seems to be changing. So, sorry? Well, we're an ally, so we won. We can't. So I would say that's good in a way, because today we need to reflect the aspirations of such a different, vast variety of people. That 2/3 of our people that live in our 6.5 lakh villages, their aspirations need to be reflected. We've got half our population, which is under 25 years, who have totally different aspirations. They're hungry for economic power. They want jobs. They want to rise. They want things quick on a platter. There's 70% of our population which is still living below poverty line. And I think then there is the women, which hold up half the sky, but they don't get even what is enshrined in the Constitution as their right to equality. So there's so many diverse segments that need to be appeased and satisfied, and everybody's needs are as important. And today the government needs to address those. I'm glad that we're a young nation, we're a vibrant democracy, but I think what's the need of the hour is that the youth needs to come forward and choose governments that fulfill these aspirations and choose politicians that deliver. And we need to rise above just parties and allegiances and things like that. And I think that's where the change will come, and I'm sure the youth will do that.
Thank you. Arpian, do you think in this era of coalition politics, India is becoming ungovernable? Why is it that a government with people with good intent gets embroiled in so many allegations of corruption? Do you believe that because of coalition politics, because of a lack of a clean mandate, the idea of India is being crippled by coalition politics?
Rahul, I've worked on this speech of mine for a long time.
Yes.
I've taken notes, so I'm just going to you have to give me 5 minutes, and I think I would ask everybody's time. There's 5 minutes that I've worked on. So I've got a mic, yeah, okay. Well, good evening to everybody. I'm here today as a representative of the democracy we often attack, we are loudly critical about, and generally complain about. But let's use the words of Sir Winston Churchill. It has been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except all the others have been tried, unquote. Well, we're all proud that India is is the largest democracy. We have had the universal right to vote before many other countries, and our election process is free, fair, and much faster, even faster than the United States, if you remember. Even in this age of general cynicism, voters of Tripura taught us a lesson. They voted 93%. They have taught something to the people of Delhi and Mumbai, perhaps. In this time, the challenge before us today is, I think, how to make the democracy completely participatory, inclusive, accountable, not just for elections, but every day of our lives. I've been in politics for 20 years. I've won 4 elections and lost a few. So I think I have some sense of both sides of the story. So what we need to look at is how to restore faith in our systems and make them relevant to the current times. For instance, the one bill I think can transform governance is the Service Bill, or the Citizens Charter Bill, which lays down for the first time in India the promise for providing services in a fixed amount of time. This, like the Right to Information Bill, will be a game changer. The other big challenge is how to get people to participate, especially younger people. I think 2014 will be a watershed election in that sense, because of the largest number of young people have come of voting age, and because I predict there will be a generational shift in our politics of tomorrow. I hope young India will look at this as a chance to bring about a change in what they think about. John Keane, in his works, The Life and Death of Democracy, writes of new, what he calls monetary democracy. This includes monitoring groups of governments that never existed before, NGOs, think tanks, public commissions, etc., etc. Yet there is a danger inherent here as well, and you are to blame. Often we find ill-informed outrage, especially on TV channels, amplifies the demand of a vocal few. From Charterati, we now have the Studio-rati, as I like to call them. Well, I call them, our national pastime now is to abuse all politicians. Sab neta chor hain. Well, we have somebody who joined us, but he still hasn't joined us here, but he joined the club of Sab neta chor hain. But I ignore the strides this country has made, not in spite of the governments, but because of them. The latest trend I quote from political theory is called slacktivism. There's activism and there's slacktivism. We all want to be online activists. We all are aware of our rights, but not aware of our duties. Let me share an anecdote with you. When I was the Minister for Petroleum, in walked this young lad from my constituency. He said, I want a job in the ONGC. So I said, sure, how can I help you? He said, well, I have this test coming up. I have this objective test coming up where you tick the right answers. He said, I'll put in the blank paper in, and you ask the ONGC chairman, just put the right ticks wherever it comes right, and I'll get the job. I was amazed that a boy from my village could come up with that. But when I said, well, that won't be possible, you'll be surprised what he said to me. He was shocked, because he came from a very influential family back home, where I fight elections from. And he said, well, then my family won't be voting for you. But that is the kind of demands politicians are made on. So when we complain about those netas, remember they come from the society around us. If you want change in the system, be part of it. Take the plunge, or at least exercise your vote. Challenge the system, don't abuse it. I come from rural India, and let me tell you, the voters there are very savvy. More than any political commentator, any TV anchor, sorry again, Rahul. They have
It's also in the family, Alpian, so just watch where you go with this.
They are they're first to predict the hawa of general elections. The Indian voter has defied all pundits to choose from. Who has delivered for them? I'm here today because 2 lakh people in my constituency, over 2 lakh people in my constituency voted for me, not because 2 lakh people follow me on Twitter. And if I fail them, they will hold me accountable by voting for me. In the final analysis, there's a larger accountability for all of us to build India, not to tearing each other down, to unifying India, not dividing its people on religion and caste. For us to move forward, we have to have the three Ds, what I call the 3 Ds: debate, deliberate, and decide. It is the government's job to do the maximum good for the maximum number of people. It's the opposition, civil society, to point out what is wrong. But shrill manufactured outrage only diminishes our democracy. I like to end with a quote which I read, which struck a chord. A politician thinks of the next election. A statesman thinks of the next generation. Hopefully, I and my panelists will mix both of them. Thank you very much.
That's a very strong and engaging counter-narrative on the problems netas face from within and why they mustn't be abused. There's some interesting thoughts you've laid out. We will challenge each one of them as we go along. But first, let me bring in Aditya Thackeray. As a representative of a party that's always been defined by narrow regional chauvinism, what is it that the Shiv Sena has to contribute to the idea of India? You know, when you stand up and speak, you speak for a few. You speak for those who vote for you. Does the idea of India matter to you at all?
First of all, thank you for calling me here. Good evening to everyone. And I'm really honored to be interacting with this august audience out here. I believe what you just said, and it is defined. I think that is the very word we're all talking of, the media perceptions that are created about all of us. And again, as Kaurji also highlighted, we are in a democracy. It's a large country, we have a lot of states, and we are a union of India, like the United States of America. And remembering Obama's speech also, he said democracies are messy. And I believe that when we say unity and diversity, we won't achieve unity till each section of that diversity is addressed. Be it the students, be it various religions, be it various groups, be it various regions. And that is precisely why regional parties, 3 of us are here, we're being voted to, say, seats or to power in various states. And it's not, I won't blame the national parties for anything such like that. But I truly believe that the voice of the people is getting heard at the center. Everyone has different priorities, and similarly, regional parties too have different priorities. It doesn't mean that we are forming a front of our own because we are with the allies of a national party. And therefore, when we sit together at a table as the NDA or the UPA, all the regional and the national parties together decide what the vision of the country is. And it is here where the regional parties help in deciding what my region's vision will be. I think that is very important in a democracy. That's where you stand.
Okay. I now want to get Dharmendra Yadav, because this is when a new leader with a new comprehensive sweeping mandate came to power 365 days ago. He promised a new Uttar Pradesh. A new Uttar Pradesh where there would be less corruption, where there would be less gundagardi, where the aspirations of the youth would be met. Despite the overwhelming majority your party got, Dharmendra ji, the fact remains 365 days later, nothing has changed in Uttar Pradesh. If at all the gundas are back, if at all the lawlessness which prevailed during the previous Samajwadi Party regimes seems to have come back on the streets of Uttar Pradesh, and people are beginning to lose the faith that they had in your party. Why is it that despite having a new mandate from a new generation, instead of working towards a new India, your party has been crippled by the problems of the past?
Rahul, सबसे पहले धन्यवाद, आपने यहाँ बुलाया और मुझे खुशी है कि आज उत्तर प्रदेश में समाजवादी पार्टी आज अपना पूरा 1 साल पूरा किया है। और 1 साल पहले का उत्तर प्रदेश, मैं समझता हूँ हर व्यक्ति को अंदाज होगा उत्तर प्रदेश की स्थिति क्या थी। जहाँ केवल गुंडे, जहाँ भ्रष्टाचार का डेली एक नया इतिहास, जन कल्याण की कोई भी योजना नहीं, पत्थर का प्रदेश बना दिया था उत्तर प्रदेश को। इन्वायरमेंट के नाम पर इको पार्क को भी पत्थरों का पार्क, और न जाने बहुत सारी चीज़ें आप सब जानते हैं। मुझे खुशी है कि आज से 1 साल पहले उत्तर प्रदेश की जनता ने समाजवादी पार्टी के युवा नेतृत्व श्री अखिलेश यादव जी के ऊपर विश्वास करके समाजवादी पार्टी को बहुत ऐतिहासिक वोटों से जिताकर उत्तर प्रदेश में बैठाया है। और 1 साल के अंदर हमने जितने वादे किए थे चुनाव में लोगों के बीच में, बहुत सारे दल हैं, आप सब में से बहुत सारे लोगों को अंदाज है, चुनाव से पहले लोग घोषणाएं करते हैं, सरकार बने या न बने घोषणा पत्र भूल जाते हैं। लेकिन समाजवादी पार्टी एक ऐसी पार्टी है जिसने उत्तर प्रदेश की जनता के बीच में जो घोषणाएं की थी, उन घोषणाओं को न केवल अक्षरशः पालन किया, बल्कि आज मुझे कहते हुए फ़ख्र महसूस हो रहा है कि उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर समाजवादी पार्टी का पूरा घोषणा पत्र 1 साल के अंदर हमने लागू करके दिखा दिया है। यही नहीं, ऐसे बहुत सारी योजनाएं, जिन योजनाओं के बारे में देश की मीडिया और हमारे विपक्षी लोग आवाज़ उठाते थे कि कैसे होगा, उनको भी माननीय अखिलेश यादव जी ने पूरा करके दिखा दिया। लैपटॉप बांटने की शुरुआत कर दी, बेरोजगारी भत्ता बट रहा है, कन्या विद्याधन की योजना बट रही है। आप कहते हो उत्तर प्रदेश के गुंडों के सवाल, उत्तर प्रदेश आज मैं कह सकता हूं कि पूरी तरह से गुंडा मुक्त करने का काम माननीय अखिलेश यादव जी ने करके दिखा दिया है। घटनाएं, इतने बड़े प्रदेश है, 20 करोड़ की आबादी है, देश का तकरीबन 1/6 हिस्सा, और विश्व के पैमाने में बात करोगे तो दुनिया का 7वां देश उत्तर प्रदेश है। इतने बड़े प्रदेश में घटनाएं कुछ हो सकती हैं, लेकिन सवाल ये है राहुल जी, आपको देखना पड़ेगा कि घटनाओं के बाद प्रदेश की सरकार की नीयत क्या रही, सरकार के एक्शन क्या रहे, सरकार का काम क्या रहा। जितनी भी मांगें, चाहे मीडिया के माध्यम से, चाहे जनता के बीच से निकल के आई, पूरी की पूरी मांगों को क्राइम रोकने के लिए उत्तर प्रदेश में समाजवादी सरकार ने करके दिखा दिया। 1090 वोमेन पावर लाइन, मैं समझता हूँ पूरे देश के अंदर इससे बेहतर कोई लाइन नहीं हो सकती। 90,000 अभी तक शिकायतें आई हमारे यहाँ उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर। आपको जान के आश्चर्य होगा कि केवल 2,000 शिकायतें शेष हैं, बाकी सभी शिकायतों का निस्तारण वोमेन पावर लाइन के माध्यम से हमने करके दिखा दिया। और तो और आपको जान के खुशी होगी कि उत्तर प्रदेश की महिलाओं ने, जिसमें 16,000 महिलाओं ने दोबारा कॉल किया और धन्यवाद दिया उत्तर प्रदेश की सरकार को। ये है हमारी कानून व्यवस्था की स्थिति। डेवलपमेंट का जहाँ तक सवाल है, बहुत पिछड़ा हुआ राज्य छोड़ के गई थी पिछली सरकार, हम उसमें नहीं जाएंगे। लेकिन 1 साल के अंदर उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर बिल गेट्स जैसे विश्व के जाने माने उद्योगपति, विश्व बैंक के चेयरमैन से लेकर अमेरिकन उद्योगपतियों से लेकर देश और विदेश के तमाम उद्योगपति आज उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर जा रहे हैं। मैं ये नहीं कहता कि 1 साल में हमने पूरा प्रदेश बदल दिया, लेकिन इतना बड़ी जिम्मेदारी से कहना चाहते हैं, 1 साल के अंदर पूरे उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर एक विकास का जो माहौल बनाना चाहिए था, स्थायी विकास का, आगे तक का स्थायी विकास, उस विकास का पूरा माहौल हमारी उत्तर प्रदेश की सरकार ने मात्र 1 साल के अंदर बना के दिखा दिया है। ये है उत्तर प्रदेश की स्थिति।
धर्मेंद्र जी, आपने नियत की बात की, मैं नियत पे ही सवाल उठाता हूँ। आपने नियत की बात की, मैं नियत पर ही सवाल उठाता हूँ। पूर्ण बहुमत मिलने के बावजूद आपकी सरकार राजा भैया जैसे आदमी को मंत्री बनाती है। जब तक हाल में उन पे मर्डर का चार्ज नहीं लगा, तब तक वो आपकी सरकार में आदरणीय मंत्री थे। मैं जानना चाहता हूँ कि when we discuss the idea of India, how is it that known criminals with several cases against them of heinous crimes are included by your young chief minister without any political compulsion? Raja Bhaiya is not trying to cobble his majority together. You have a majority. Why is it that in this new India, you would bring in people like Raja Bhaiya and make them members of your cabinet?
देखिए, जहाँ तक राजा भैया का सवाल है, पहले भी राजा भैया को कई पार्टियों ने मंत्री बनाया। ये सच है कि हमारी पार्टी ने भी मंत्री बनाया। नहीं बनाया क्या, बता दो।
नहीं, आपने नए इंडिया की बात की, हम यहाँ पे चर्चा कर रहे हैं नए इंडिया की।
राहुल जी सुनिए, नए नेता का जहाँ तक सवाल है, डीपी यादव, जो मेरे खुद की कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी से मेरे खिलाफ चुनाव लड़े थे, और ये भी सही है कि शायद अगर वो पार्टी में आए होते तो शायद मेरे लिए चुनौतियाँ कुछ कम होती, लेकिन मुझे फ़ख्र है कि हमारे मुख्यमंत्री जी ने उनको पार्टी से आने से रोकने का भी काम कर दिया। और यही नहीं किया, ये घटना दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है प्रतापगढ़ की, इस पर जितना दुख व्यक्त करें उतना कम है। घटना नहीं होनी चाहिए थी, लेकिन उस घटना के बाद
डीपी यादव को रोका चुनाव से पहले, मैं चुनाव के बाद की बात कर रहा हूं।
चुनाव के बाद भी रोका है, और बहुत सारे लोगों को रोका है, बहुत सारे लोग आने की फिराक में थे इस सरकार में, लेकिन रोकने के दिखा दिया है। और ये भी जो मामला था, इसमें चाहे देश की मीडिया हो, जनता हो, या उस पीड़ित परिवार के लोग हों, जो भी चाहे समाजवादी पार्टी की उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार से, वो समाजवादी पार्टी की सरकार ने करके दिखा दिया है।
Okay, we will argue this further as we go along. But I want to take on a couple of the things that RPN said about, this general perception across the country कि मेरा नेता चोर है. Why do you think it came to that? Perceptions don't just come about when people are sleeping. Perceptions are built over time, maybe because of the actions of some people within the system, which lead people to believe that वाकई में मेरा नेता चोर है.
Rahul, I don't agree to that. It's a very general thing you put on any television channel, including yours. The thing is, politicians are lampooned all over the world. I don't say they aren't only, and from there, it's absolutely true that some politicians are bad, but they were not. So much good is also happening, and 80%. Well, there are bad people in every kind of profession, be it doctors, be it journalists, be it. I can carry on the list the whole day, but there are good people also. But we do not seem to get any kind of space in the general conversation or in the general television channels. There are a lot of people who are doing good work. And there are a lot of people, we have very bright young people sitting here and are cutting all across party lines. They are doing very good jobs in their constituencies, doing very good for their party and for the country. But they don't get mentioned at all. And I know it is very easy to criticize politicians. But I think that perception is being played over and over in the media, in the kind of things, in city-centric kind of centers. And I think the social media, I just joined the social media about 2 months ago. I thought it would be some fascinating thing where you get some fascinating kind of ideas from, but 90% of the people are only abusing you. Not only abusing me, they're abusing my wife, my children. And they're using the kind of language I can't even repeat on this show. So what I'm trying to tell you is, I thought these are the people who are going to change this country. And these are the people who think politicians are bad guys. They don't even have normal decency of how to talk to people, how to react to people, the kind of language they use. So I think those people definitely aren't changing the country. And if those people think we are politicians are chore, I'm okay with that. But the rest of the country, 90% people definitely don't think that.
Harsimrat wants to build on that line of thought. Yes.
To add to it, that I don't know whether you people have ever looked at the textbooks of your kids that are studying in school. You'd probably be in for a shock, because I raised this issue in Parliament when I found that my 13-year-old daughter, when she gets introduced to civics, which starts when they're 13 years old in class 8 or 9, the whole book was just full of cartoons. There was a politician who's running in front with a sack of biscuits, with a dog behind him written water, and one biscuit falling, and the dog hungry dog running behind that biscuit. Then there's another picture of this politician with the guns and all. पीछे से तुम वोट डालने क्यों आए हो? हमने तुम्हारी वोट डाल दी है. The entire book was just full of all the wrong things that are happening. Not a single cartoon about the good work that a politician does. And this was not just the first book. This carried on right up till class 12, all 3 books. So when I look back in the last 6 years that these books came into being, look at the billions of kids whose minds at that sensitive age where politics is supposed to be an inclusive profession. So first we taught them in school that this is all that the politicians do. Then they pick up the newspaper, they read all the wrong things that are being done. They switch on the TV channel, they only hear about the nonsense that the politicians are doing. Nothing good about the politician is coming out. So today, our youth wants to not have anything to do with a politician, and they don't want to be part of this profession. So where are we heading if the youth doesn't come into this profession, which is supposed to be all inclusive? And I'm sorry, you have a big role to play in making those kids' minds biased as well. The media plays a huge role. I'm going to get flack for that.
I like how this is turning out to be a journalist bashing session with all the data.
Can I add to that, please?
Can I contest a couple of the ideas? I'm coming to Aditya in just a moment.
Just to add to that, I completely agree with her. Of course, going above the content, it's about the youth. And what are we teaching the youth today? I mean, are we trying to make them cynics in the country? Or what are we doing? Because the main thing is, if you see our country, most of the research and the development comes from ISRO and DRDO, I guess. If you see the Time magazine, the top 10 inventions of the world, it's from the universities across the world. We are teaching them the fictional, this is it, and this is not. Are we teaching them this can be, or what can you think about this? Can you invent this? We're not leading them to a more employment-oriented education. We are not giving them vocational education or what is basic in life. For example, civics, if we teach them, let's not litter our cities, or if we can teach them what you can use politics for. Let's teach them to use politics, not abuse politics.
No,
I think that is very important.
Things. One, those textbooks were not made by the people who are abusing RPN on social media. They were made by committees appointed by the government, supervised by the government, highly politicized committees, all of whom having nominees chosen by your respective governments who saw the creation of those textbooks. I want to challenge the idea of inclusive politics. When you say that why is it that the youth are not entering politics? Where are the young people? They're only abusing us. Why are they not joining our parties and being a change from within? Let me ask you all this question. Look at the background and the profile of each one of you here. You come from highly affluent, influential families who are part of the system. Smriti is shaking her head, so we leave her out. But if you look at how politics is across, from the Samajwadi Party to the Shiv Sena, to the Congress, to the Akalis, several cases in the BJP, it is by the netas for their children, their wives, their uncles, their nephews. The common man on the street doesn't have an opportunity to be a part of this system, RPN. That is the reality. If you know someone who knows someone, you can get a Lok Sabha ticket. Or in any of your parties, you can slog day in, day out, through rain, through sunshine, and you'll have no chance of getting a ticket. Who would like to answer this question on why politics is not inclusive? We'll start with Manish.
You know, I was just thinking to myself whether I should say it or not. But the only two categories which compete with politicians in the pecking order of unpopularity are lawyers, the profession I come from, and unfortunately journalists, and which I shouldn't say as the Minister for Information and Broadcasting. And unlike politicians, you know, who are lampooned by committees which are set up by government, I don't find journalists getting lampooned by anybody. But then why are they competing with us in the pecking order of unpopularity? So I think let's move away from the superficial discourse. And let's try and focus on stuff which is far more substantive. You asked a question as to why is politics self-perpetuating? And the answer to that is as follows. Every politician ultimately goes out and gets tested at the hustings. If you come from a political family, yes, you have a first mover advantage. There is absolutely no denying that. But if you don't deliver, then you don't come back the second time. To answer your question about, you know, it is an incestuous club where only a certain kind of people keep getting promoted, you know, I tend to disagree with that completely. I started off as a college unit president of the NSUI, or a college unit activist of the NSUI in 1981. And I am not going to map my own career trajectory. But one thing I can tell you, if there were entry barriers, then somebody like me would never have been where I am today. So therefore, you know, these are fallacious premises on which we try and extrapolate arguments which do not stand the test of either reason or logic. I think most importantly, since you've got, you know, young people out here, what we really need to focus upon is that despite the very fractured polity that we have, how can we build a certain amount of multi-partisanship to see that some of the challenges, and you know, it's not about their government or our government, but how these challenges can be surmounted to make India a better tomorrow. I think that should be the focus of the discussion.
Manish is a very good lawyer. He can answer a question without tackling the moot point about inclusiveness in politics. I still challenge the question of politics in India being inclusive, RPN, because Your leader, Rahul Gandhi, promised that he would democratize the Congress party. He promised that wherever he's in charge, new people would get tickets. See what happened in Uttar Pradesh, the state where you come from. See the people who during the assembly election got tickets. There were so many relatives, there were people from within the system, there were deserters. For all the talk of wanting to change the system, when it actually came to giving tickets, the tickets were given to those who were part of the system, and those from the outside who wanted to come in, who were knocking on the door, were sent away because Indian politics is a closed-door system.
Well, I think you're misinformed there, Rahul. If you see the people who got elected in the UP Congress, well, very few people got elected, I agree to that. But if you see all the people who got elected,
Is there a message in those who didn't get
No,
elected?
all the people who got elected are all young candidates who had no political background. In fact, from my own constituency.
No, but the ones who got defeated because they were part of the system.
There's a 34-year-old boy who's got elected. He has no background. He survived on 3,000 or 4,000 rupees, but he was a youth Congress activist. He got a ticket. He beat two stalwarts. I can tell you at least 15 candidates in Uttar Pradesh who won, who are from the Youth Congress, and they had no but they don't come on stage here. You also, people who are media hyped up, their father or somebody, that is why we are here.
Because you're a minister and this person is not RPN.
Other ministers and
who all became ministers? Who all became ministers?
Why don't you call Manik Tagore? He's an MP from the Congress party. I have worked under Manish in the Youth Congress. Manik Tagore is in the Youth Congress. He's an MP. And the thing is, there are a lot of people in the Youth Congress today who did not have... Our Youth Congress president from Haryana, he's an MP today. He had no background. He began his career as a JNU president. So I think this kind of media that only people with backgrounds get elected, you have to, why don't you go down the list? And you see how many people have a background, go down through all the parties and see people whose fathers were in politics, whose families were in politics. You have these 15 people.
Is it not much easier
It is not,
for an RPN Singh to become a minister, for a Jyotiraditya Scindia to become a minister, for a Sachin Pilot to become a minister,
Jyotiraditya Scindia has won his election 3 times.
Then for someone else,
there are hundreds
who
of
comes
people,
from a non-political background.
Even let's say in Bollywood, they are very big stars. We have Amitabh Bachchan, who's a superstar. He tried desperately to make his son an actor. He couldn't because the people out there decide. The people out there decide. So if my father wants to make me a politician, and if I can't win an election, what does he do? And there are a lot of people who have tried to be in politics, but haven't made it, right? Okay. So, and there are a lot of people, there are a lot of politicians who are people of big people's families, but they don't make it. So I think this kind of category, say only big people from families, from large political families, is some kind of club, I think is absolutely wrong.
Aditya, what qualifies you to be the heir of the Shiv Sena? Or your father to take... Hear my whole proposition out. Or your father to take over from his father. There might be others within the Shiv Sena, some of whom quit the party, formed their own parties, joined other parties, who might have been more connected, more rooted, greater appeal. Why is it that you will take over the Shiv Sena and not somebody who's actually out on the ground trying to win the affection of people?
You should have called them instead of me. The very fact that I'm here
you are the executive president of the youth
is because of my working credentials. I mean, you should tour with me when I go to Thane rural area now. I will be going back, and you should actually tour with me because I've stopped taking the media with me. Somehow, I'm fed up of that. However, you should come with me, the rural villages that we're giving water to, and we're actually cooperating with the government, not opposing it. But the villages that we're giving water to, day and night, the schemes I'm working on, even the students' issues. For example, 2 years ago, we won the Senate elections in Mumbai University. And I was an 18-year-old, and I was leading the charge because I was interested in it. And my college issues were not being solved. So I said, hey, come on, let's take up this responsibility and let's put 10 candidates in. First of all, none of those 10 candidates have any background. My 2 MPs out here don't have any background. The 2 chief ministers that we gave to Maharashtra didn't have any background. And the last 4 mayors, or each and every mayor that the Shiv Sena has given, has had no political background. None of our MPs have, actually. However, as I said, the Senate elections, 8 out of 10 we won. It was a historic win. 1 minute, let me complete. And day and night, the way I'm helping my colleagues, my fellow students, some of them are here around me, the way I'm trying to solve their problems, I think that is my credential. It's not because I am someone. I'm not that type of a person that's saying, oh, I'm Aditya Thackeray, I'm going to be here. It's because I have a personal satisfaction. I have a feeling towards my people, duty towards the people who believe in my party, and that is what I'm working for. No, but and I believe all of us are here because of that. Because this question as they rightly said, just a minute, as they rightly said, you can get elected once on your party name, but again, it's very tough to be on the same platform because you get a platform, I agree, you are compared directly with your father, with your grandfather. Each one has a different style, way of working. And if the people don't accept you, they won't accept you. That is it. I mean, it's up to the people to accept me or not. I am working, I am doing my bit for my satisfaction.
Okay.
And
I just want to tell our viewers that, and the audience over here, that so far Arvind Kejriwal was at a public rally in Kundli and he got delayed. But it's great to have you with us, Arvind, because so far it's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versus everybody else. Okay, they've all ganged up. That's where we are right now. And the point that's been made so far is that politics in India...
against you, Rahul, not against him.
Okay. Yes. So the point that's been made by our panel so far, Arvind, is that politics in India is highly inclusive. That parties don't exclude anyone. It's an open door system. Anyone can come in. If you're good, you can become an MP, you can become an MLA. That's the point that's been made by our panelists so far. You are challenging that closed door system. You're saying that that is not true. So why don't you make your case on why you believe that politics is not an open door system as is being suggested by RPN, by Manish and the others, that the manner in which politics in India is being executed needs to be challenged, and why is it that you're trying to do so?
First of all, let me apologize that I was not able to come in time, but it was not my fault. There was some confusion at India Today's team, so that is why I'm late. It's not because... Second point, small point that I want to make is that though I can speak in English, but when I speak in Hindi, I speak from my heart. And I want to speak to all of you from my heart. दिल से दिल की बात करनी है, तो मैं हिंदी में बात करूँगा. तीसरी चीज़ मैं एक छोटी सी बात कहना चाहता हूँ. पॉलिटिक्स इंक्लूसिव है, एक्सक्लूसिव है. एक आम आदमी की आज ज़िंदगी क्या बीत रही है. मैं टिकड़ी गया था अभी कुछ दिन पहले, वहाँ पे एक रिक्शा वाला मिला. वो रिक्शा वाला कहता है जी 8,000 रुपये महीना कमाता हूँ मैं. मेरे 3,000 रुपये का बिजली का बिल आता है आजकल. 1,500 रुपये पानी का बिल आता है. 2,500 रुपये बचे, उसमें 3 सिलेंडर आ जाते हैं. अब अपने बच्चों को कहाँ से पालूँ, कहाँ से क्या करूँ. और मैं आज स्पेशली इतनी दूर से इसलिए आया आप सब लोगों से पूछने के लिए कि वो बेचारा क्या करे, अपने बच्चों को कहाँ से पढ़ाए, कहाँ से रोटी खाए, क्या करे. ये सारी इस पॉलिटिक्स की वजह से ही तो हो रहा है. इतनी महंगाई है. बिजली महंगी है क्योंकि शीला दीक्षित जी मिली हुई हैं बिजली कंपनियों के साथ. पानी महंगा है क्योंकि शीला दीक्षित जी मिली हुई हैं बिजली कंपनियों के साथ. भाजपा चुप है, उनको लग रहा है अगली सरकार शायद हमारी बन जाए, हमें भी तो पैसे कमाने हैं. तो सारे मिले हुए हैं. अब ऐसी स्थिति में एक आम आदमी बेचारा कहाँ जाए, वो जवाब चाहता है. और आप सारे लोगों ने पिछले 65 साल से, चाहे राज्य सरकार में चाहे केंद्र सरकार में, आप लोगों ने रूल किया है. आप हमारे माई बाप रहे हैं. आपको बताना पड़ेगा कि एक आम आदमी अब बेचारा अपनी ज़िंदगी कैसे चलाए.
Arvind, I'd like you to shape this discourse by explaining to all of us what each one of the guests said in the beginning, just briefly, to give your idea about the future of India, Indian politics, and how is it different from the system in the manner in which it exists right now.
That is exactly what I said, कि आज की राजनीति, आज शिक्षा खराब है क्योंकि राजनीति खराब है. आज स्वास्थ्य खराब है क्योंकि राजनीति खराब है. आज महंगाई है क्योंकि राजनीति खराब है. आज भ्रष्टाचार है क्योंकि राजनीति खराब है. इस देश में कानून कैसे बनते हैं? 2 बार मनमोहन सिंह जी ने हिम्मत दिखाई. एक बार जब न्यूक्लियर डील था और दूसरी बार जब FDI था. तब लगा पहली बार कि मनमोहन सिंह जी के अंदर हिम्मत है, उन्होंने अपनी सरकार दांव पे लगा दी. लेकिन जब इस देश के लोगों ने जन लोकपाल बिल मांगा, सारा देश मांग रहा था, इंडिया टुडे वालों ने भी सर्वे करवाया था, 80% लोग कह रहे थे लोकपाल बिल दो, जन लोकपाल बिल दो. सरकार उसके ऊपर कोई एक्शन. जब आम आदमी मांगता है, अभी जब दामिनी का गैंगरेप केस हुआ, सरकार, जनता ने कहा कि एक बलात्कार के खिलाफ सख्त कानून बना दो, तब भी नहीं दिया. जब इस देश का आम आदमी कानून मांगता है तो इस देश की सरकार कानून नहीं देती है. लेकिन जब अमेरिका कोई के बात कहता है तो तुरंत सरकार. तब मनमोहन सिंह जी के अंदर हिम्मत आ जाती है बहुत ज़्यादा. तो इस देश के अंदर आम आदमी कानून नहीं बनाता. इस देश के अंदर दूसरे रीजंस की वजह से कानून. इस राजनीति को बदलना पड़ेगा. इस ऐसी राजनीति लानी पड़ेगी जिसके अंदर आम आदमी की चले. कहने को हम कहते हैं बाय द पीपल, फॉर द पीपल, ऑफ द पीपल. बाय द पीपल नहीं है ये, ऑफ द पीपल नहीं है. 5 साल में एक बार चुनाव करने को राजनीति, डेमोक्रेसी नहीं कहते हैं. डेमोक्रेसी के अंदर हम लोगों की सीधी भागीदारी होनी चाहिए. दैट इज़ डेमोक्रेसी. इसी को बदलना है. और आज बिकॉज दिस इज़ अबाउट यूथ, मैंने एक कोट पढ़ा था अभी 3-4 दिन पहले, उसमें लिखा था कि इस देश की सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम करप्शन नहीं है, इस देश की सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम टेररिज्म भी नहीं है, इस देश की सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम वो यूथ है जो इस देश की रोटी खा के बड़ा होता है और बड़ा होके कहता है आई हेट पॉलिटिक्स. वी कैन नॉट अफोर्ड टू हेट पॉलिटिक्स because the politics of this country is democracy. Democracy is by the people, of the people, for the people. And the day the people of this country stop taking interest in politics, I think democracy will not survive, democracy will not exist. We all have to take part in politics. तभी हम इस politics को बचा पाएंगे, इसको save कर पाएंगे.
Thank you, Arvind. I want to come to Smriti on the debate that we were having on whether politics was indeed inclusive or not.
No, अरविंद जी, मैं दिल की बात बंगाली गुजराती में भी कर सकती हूँ, लेकिन हिंदी में ही आपको संबोधित करूँगी. मुझे बड़ा विचित्र लगता है कि आप एक तरफ बात करते हैं कि पॉलिटिक्स ख़राब है और उसके बाद देश की युवा पीढ़ी पर ये आक्षेप लगाते हैं, आरोप लगाते हैं दैट यू हेट पॉलिटिक्स. मुझे बड़ा अजीब लगता है जब आप कहते हैं कि सब नेता चोर हैं लेकिन खुद आप एक राजनीतिक पार्टी बनाते हैं. मुझे बड़ा अजीब लगता है जब आप कहते हैं कि अगर बिजली महंगी हो गई है तो बिजली का तार काट दो. मैं बड़ी ही विनम्रता के साथ आज आपसे कहना चाहती हूँ अरविंद जी कि लोकतंत्र बिजली काटने से सशक्त नहीं होती, हर घर में बिजली देने से सशक्त होती है. दूसरी बात, I would now reflect on what Mr. Singh said with regards to Twitter. Not that they are very kind to people like me or possibly Miss Kaur on Twitter. But one has to recognize that the social media has given the youth a platform and an opportunity to speak their mind. One has to realize that yes, the youth on Twitter is shrill in its opinion about Indian politics and politicians. But one also has to appreciate that this is the same youth that stands united with our polity when Pakistan passes a resolution challenging the sovereignty of our nation. This is the same youth which will rant, which will outrage, which will be anguished on Twitter when soldiers are beheaded at the border. But many of them, Mr. Singh, will still wear the uniform with pride, go into the army knowing very well that when they die, there might not be a single politician to lay a wreath on their dead body. So one needs to... Mr. Singh spoke about DDD. You did? Okay. I think that what we need today, apart from the 3 Ds that he articulated, is also a PPPD, public participation to protect and to promote our democracy. I think that this is a platform where you not only deliberate, but you also ideate. And I want to leave an idea behind today in your conclave, that I was extremely amazed to read that the Finnish parliament has a futures committee, which is constituted of its parliamentarians. Can we envisage a future where our parliamentarians, irrespective of their political ideological differences, can come together under one roof, can possibly study the impact of current legislation on the future, but also anticipate the challenges that the future might hold and bring about solutions in the present? And can we add the strength of public opinion, and for that matter, even a shrill Twitterati, as Mr. Singh said, can we add that so that ultimately we are all here today not to win brownie points, कि कितने नेता चोर हैं या कौन चोर नहीं है. We are here today as members of various political organizations to tell the people of our country, and especially the youth which is watching the India Today conclave, that when it comes to issues of national interest, this nation and its polity stands as one unit. With a sense of India first and nationalism, maybe we can go together off this conclave in a consensus on various issues, like Manish said.
But RPN, you said that people are abusive on Twitter and social media is very extreme and violent. I actually would like to point out to you that social media has ushered in a new revolution in public accountability, where earlier there was pressure from just the top. Now there is pressure from the bottom. Every single action of yours, mine, every single person sitting over here, is now being scrutinized by the thousands, the lakhs who follow you. And the discourse is changing as a consequence of this constant scrutiny. A lot of people, politicians, businessmen, lawyers, journalists, might have thought they would have got away with things 5 years, 10 years ago, which they now know, if they did, the same abusive people that you're talking about will come after them with a vengeance, and therefore they're more circumspect, they're more careful, and that means that we are headed towards greater transparency, more openness, more accountability, more scrutiny.
Well, I didn't say that all people on Twitter are bad, but I spoke about slacktivism, right? That is something, this is Morozov's theory. He started this theory after this dictator in Africa, who still happens to be the dictator there. When it hit YouTube, it had the maximum hits in its time. So people were just forwarding it, but nothing happened. The dictator continues to rule in Africa, but everybody thought they'd done their duty by forwarding the message or downloading it on YouTube. So what I'm talking of is that slacktivism, you know. Activism, that's where he came up with this slang, that people on Twitter feel that if they pass on a message or retweet something, their job is done. I'm talking of their job is not done. I'm talking about they need to participate. Either take the plunge like Arvind, or exercise your franchise.
They have participated. If you see in all the protests that happened in Delhi, Mumbai, elsewhere, they were the same people that you're talking about who were on social media, who gave up what they were doing that day, came out and protested. And none of you went to meet them.
No, I met them later. I'm telling
much
you.
later.
No, not
when
much
the protests
later.
were raging, you didn't meet them.
What I'm trying to say is, what I'm talking about is what I said in my opening remarks. Those people need to take the plunge, or they need to exercise, they need to vote. Something that happened in Tripura. I don't know how many people in Tripura on Twitter, but 93% people voted. Do you think maximum people on Twitter are from Delhi, are from Mumbai? How much people do vote? Maybe Arvind will change it. And a lot of people come out to vote for him or against him. Time will tell. Because he seems to have got it all right. He's meeting auto rickshaw people around. We've been meeting them for a long time. I know it's all new to him. When you start a political party, you have to move a lot of other kind of people. I know it is new to him. He will find out slowly. Elections aren't too far. I wish him all the best.
I don't know if I'll get a chance later. That's why I'm just ideating as taking forward from what they said. And I had thought of 2-3 ideas when I came here, and I'm trying to spread that around the country through Facebook, through everywhere. And I have realized that most of our parties have become reactionary politic-oriented parties. When something happens, we only go to the media, we talk about it, and react. And same is on Twitter and Facebook everywhere, I myself being a part of it. We need to go towards action politics. What am I doing for it?
Why are you not doing it?
I am doing it. That is my next point. I am doing it. Yeah, you're not reporting it. Thank you. When we realized that the safety of women in Mumbai or Maharashtra is a big question, our helpline started off, and some of the media compared our helplines to the Delhi helplines, not targeting the Delhi government, but they said the Delhi government helplines didn't work for 2 days, whereas ours was on 24/7, and we actually helped 15 to 20 people, women, facing all the sexual harassment cases, and we helped them. When there was a drought in Maharashtra, we have worked. Last year, we gave water to 75 villages through the BMC, not under its jurisdiction, but in rural Thane. But we are working. Again, we were facing a big issue of the 12th standard exams being postponed, the TYBSE exams being postponed, the teachers going on a strike. I decided, let's not react, let's go and act. I took it to the governor, and the governor was very graceful to meet us and try to solve the issue. And he directed the government to do so. So that is one of the major things. Secondly, last week, we were all young guys at a council general's lunch. It was an informal lunch, and I wouldn't take the name of the country because I don't know if I'm allowed to. But I said one thing there. This session of the Lok Sabha is almost over. There's 1 year. No one knows what will happen. Half the people are confident they'll go halfway down. Some of them are confident they'll carry it through. But let's get to one point that all political parties, whoever gets elected, not elected, whoever is in government, irrespective of all of that, let's create a vision for India that both the government and the opposition can follow, regardless of who's in power. And I will assure you from my side, if there are some youth issues or issues for the national coming together and the national good, we will support any party that's doing that.
Thank you.
I've been listening about all this about democracy and the future, and there are some things I think which are really crucial questions of democracy which young people think about. Young people today, if they are agreed on one thing, they disagree on a lot and they argue a lot on Twitter and Facebook and all of that. But if there's one thing which I think they do agree upon, it is that they don't want to be told what to wear, who to marry, what they should write or what they should think, what they should read. These are things on which they're united, and these are really the life and soul of democracy, and not just in India, all over the world. So there, I'd like to ask, several of the panelists to respond on this, because it's been weighing on my mind that those questions of democracy didn't come up at all in what anyone said. The freedom of expression. I'd like Smriti to, talk about why is it that outfits very close to the BJP, like the Bajrang Dal, regularly, I mean, we've come into confrontation with them time and again, where they tell young people that you can't wear jeans, you shouldn't celebrate Valentine's Day, or we'll beat you up, and all of that. And please don't take the escape route of saying, oh, BJP has nothing to do with Bajrang Dal. We all know that they do, right? So what is it which is that kind of vision? Then Aditya Thackeray also. I'd like to tell Aditya that, in fact, I think I'm an alumnus from the same college where he's from. And I owe my activism on gender issues and otherwise to the Yuva Sena, because there was a Yuva Sena activist in my university who told me that women like me should be in jail because we wanted freedom for women and the freedom to be women and live lives as we like. And he actually told me that, which is why I became compelled to come into activism. And you talked a lot about Facebook. One second, Aditya. You talked a lot about Facebook. What about, I've just read in the papers yesterday, or maybe it was this morning, that the Shiv Sena is asking for the reinstatement of the policemen who arrested those 2 young girls for expressing a voice of dissent on Facebook against your supreme leader, and a bandh that happened because your supreme leader died. I can't understand that. What is this? Is this the voice of youth? What are we talking about? And one last little thing, which I think is about democracy. Look at what happened. I'd like to, both the Congress leaders on the panel here, RPN Singh as well as Manish, I'd like to ask, what about the basic, these draconian laws that we have which are suppressing the right to dissent? You may not agree with Binayak Sen, but was his arrest right? Was he, young people, I think, belying most of our expectations, came out very vociferously against the Sedition Act. What's your position on that? What's your position on...
Okay, let's get them to answer the question.
And
we'll begin by...
One thing to the Sapa, one little thing. About principled politics, I'd like Samajwadi Party से आप हैं, मैं जानना चाहती हूँ एक चीज़ पर कि आप सामाजिक न्याय की बात करते हुए कुछ तो उसूल होंगे. तो अगर रिजर्वेशन में प्रमोशन की जो बात, प्रमोशन में रिजर्वेशन की जो बात थी, आप सामाजिक न्याय के सवाल पे समाजवादी पार्टी बनी, लेकिन आप एक सारे आरक्षण विरोधी तर्कों के साथ आप राजनीति में पूरी तरह से सिर्फ अपॉर्चुनिस्ट आधार पर आप अपने पॉलिसीज तय करते हैं. इसके बारे में आप जरा.
Okay, let's get Smriti to answer the first question about the Bajrang Dal.
Thank you. Rahul, what is fascinating is that Kavita can come from a Marxist background, be a part of a political organization, and yet present herself, because it's a conclave where we ideate, as an activist and ask us pointed questions as politicians. I will not ask her why the Marxist Party never speaks about those who die because of Naxals attack paramilitary forces. I will never ask why, in 30 years in Bengal, the economy was plunged into despair. I will not ask why, when a state is attacked by a so-called red leader, is the state supposed to kneel down in front of red terror? I will not ask all these questions.
You will answer the question, though, right?
But
those are relevant questions.
As a member of the BJP, and I'm definite that Kavita knows this, that we are a political organization which has constitutionally received the mandate and has the responsibility to uphold the rights of men and women in this country to live their life as they so desire. I might wear a sari, Kavita, but that does not mean that I don't have a modern thought. For me, modernity is a state of mind and is not a dress code. But I will respect the right of a woman to wear a skirt or a jeans or pants for all that matters. But ultimately, I think what needs to be questioned and what needs to be asked in the context of women's security in our country today are 2 things. One, whether the legislations that are being drafted in Parliament as we speak, or which are to be presented as we speak, are drafted well enough to protect the rights of men and women. And secondly, whether after passing that legislation, our implementation tools are being given the budgetary support that they need to ensure that those rights and those laws can be implemented to the best of the government's ability. So let me reiterate once again, I respect the right of a woman And I respect
so will you condemn the Bajrang Dal for what they're saying or not?
I respect the right of a woman to wear what she wants, but I also respect the right in a democracy of people who want to have a view different than mine.
No, but what about
and
them going and beating up people who have a view different from theirs?
I think that is what democracy is all about.
Fair enough. Will you
While I
condemn
have a right to my opinion, I have to respect the right of others to disagree with me. While I do respond and celebrate the freedom of the press, I mean, you've been bashed all this evening, I also have to respect...
Actually, it's been vice versa also. So
no,
yeah, we've taken some, we've given some, but yeah, fair enough.
I also have to...
Yeah, you haven't answered that question.
Let me ask you counter questions about why Arundhati Roy thinks that Kashmir should be freed.
No, we're not talking
I
about
think
that.
this is a platform.
I fully respect what you said
I
fully respect what you said about the bill, about the legislation.
As
I'm with you on that.
As RPN would say, this is not a TV debate.
Will you condemn the Bajrang Dal for beating up
as RPN would say, this is not a TV debate. As RPN would say that this is not a TV debate. Neither are you Rahul Kanwal or Arnab Goswami. But let me once again, as a member of a political organization, reiterate the fact that women have the right to choose the dress they want to wear. But at the same time, I have to allow in a democracy people who have a view different from mine.
But having a view different is no problem, Smriti. What about them getting violent in trying to enforce their view? It's a very simple question. All those
I don't think the BJP has ever
organizations...
supported anybody's right to get violent and to transgress into constitutional freedoms that people enjoy in this country.
And the Shri Ram Sene get violent.
Shri Ram Sene is not a part of the BJP, Rahul.
No, I'm not saying
and
it's
neither
part
is
of
the
the
Bajrang Dal. Bajrang Dal is not a part of the BJP. I'm sure Kavita knows it, as do you. So I'm sure that the next time you find somebody from the Bajrang Dal, you can have that answer. But I can only answer as a member of the BJP. If the idea is to deliberate and not sensationalize, then I'm sure my answer would suffice.
Okay, let's get Aditya to come in and comment.
Ma'am, I have a question for you. When did you graduate? Sorry?
1990.
The Yuva Sena wasn't present then. It was just 2 years ago that we formed.
JNU. They contested an election in 1995 in JNU, and that was when?
I was 5 years old. And the Yuva Sena wasn't there. Which Yuva Sena are you talking of? We just formed 2 years ago in Maharashtra. Now we are spreading our roots.
The student wing of the Shiv Sena.
I wasn't the president then. And the president is not in our party now, so you could ask him probably. No. I'm coming to the point. Secondly, which college were you in, ma'am?
I was in St. Xavier's College, which I think.
That is the same college.
Isn't that where you imposed this ban on Rohinton Mistri's
book? No, one second. These are all the misconceptions that you have. First of all, I have never spoken about it, but that is the very same college that has banned wearing shorts in college because it's not liberal. And that was the very college that banned wearing red t-shirts or red clothes because it's the color of the devil long time back. So, I mean, I don't know where liberalism comes in there. However, about the Rohinton Mistry issue, again, a very important issue. As Ms. Kaur said, what are we teaching our kids? It was not a ban, first of all. The book, page 72, abuses the martyrs that died for Maharashtra and Gujarat. Now that can't be taught in class. Secondly, we haven't banned it. We have only requested the university to remove it from the syllabus, and that was removed. It's still in the markets.
We know how the Shiv Sena requests.
Just a second. If we wanted to ban it, we would have banned it like the Red Sari or any other book. Or there was a ban on the Da Vinci Code somewhere else.
What allows you, Aditya, to ban anything at all?
I am
what
not
about
banning
respecting
it.
somebody's counterpoint of view?
That is what
you just said it, that if I wanted, I would have banned it.
I am precisely saying that. I am not banning it. If anyone wants to read it,
but you just said it, if I wanted, I would have banned it. What gives you the right to believe that you can do that in a democracy?
Personal sentiment.
No, it's not sentiment. What about the other person's sentiment to read that book?
If you can allow someone to voice his or her sentiment on Facebook,
yes, so allow that person to give his book. You don't want to read it, let the Shiv Sena not read that book.
You're just being biased. You're being biased because if you can
biased.
1 minute. If you can allow someone, if you can allow RPN to have his own view, and if I say something against him, you'll be liberal and saying, oh, no, he's saying something and you have to be with him. It's my view. But have I done that?
No, I don't have a problem in your view. You can have any view, Aditya. The question is,
secondly,
in you wanting to willfully enforce your view.
I am not wanting to enforce my view. Secondly, going through the judiciary is not enforcing your view. It's the view of the judiciary. Thirdly, what I am saying is this very precise thing. We haven't banned the book. It's still in the market. Whoever wants to read it can buy the book and read it. We are not forcing. We don't want such literature that has abuses against the martyrs of Maharashtra and Gujarat to be forcefully read and taught in class because teachers came to us and complained saying, we can't read this language in class. I will give you the book. Try and read it out in the chalk or on your television. And the government will come behind you saying, oh, no, it's a family channel and you can't do that. So are you going to teach that?
You're entitled to your opinion. We don't want to make this an argument back and forth. But Kavita also asked a question about freedom of expression and whether Manish, as the Information and Broadcasting Minister, you'd like to respond to her on this notion that freedom of expression is under threat, that the government never stands up for the right for people to express themselves, whether it's the Shiv Sena, the MNS, any group. The moment they say, I don't want this, the government's first response is, okay, hata do, let's not get into a panga. Why does the government never stand up for the right of people to express themselves, even if they have a point of view which is different and is being opposed?
Manish, is it so simple that we say and you do?
No, but Kavita never asked that question.
Actually about the reinstatement of the policemen.
Right. Again here, there is a very irrelevant topic that's coming in because it's something that's blown out of proportion. And if you want to treat someone equally, let's treat everyone equally. There was a policewoman who was groped, molested in a riot. She wrote a poem and she was suspended from her police duty. So if someone has a voice, everyone has a voice, give it equal treatment. And if sentiments can be voiced, sentiments can be hurt. Sorry?
Let's also move this further. Let's move this further. Manish.
Let me reply to the question which Kavita had asked. With regard to, do we have a difficulty, and this is my personal opinion because ministers are not supposed to have a personal opinion, especially in a public platform. Do we have a problem with our laws? I think there is a serious need to really relook at the entire gamut of our laws. And I think it would be perhaps appropriate if we start introducing a sunset clause, whereby after every 25 years or something, till the time the law is not passed again by Parliament and it is not updated, then it lapses. With regard to sedition, you asked a specific question with regard to the sedition law. Now, does this country require a sedition law? The answer to that is yes. Was the sedition law misapplied in a particular case? That's a call which the courts have to take. Whether the law is properly applied or the law is misapplied is something which is adjudicated in a court of law. And I think that's how democracies function, when you have respect for institutions, and if at all an institution finds that you've actually erred, then there is punitive punishment which visits you for the misapplication of that law.
Okay, can I also request the other experts to just ask one question so that we also get an opportunity to get the audience to ask questions? Can I get Karuna Nandi to ask the next question, please?
There are many who believe that constitutional secularism and the idea of India is under attack. Now, it would be easy to ask Aditya a question, and it would be easy to ask Smriti Irani a question. But I would like to ask all of you, actually. Starting with, and whenever the 2002 riots are brought up, the BJP's answer is, but look at the 1984 riots. I was in Selampur at a Congress rally in the last election when Mr. Titler was asked not to not to take the ticket. And he was there on the dais. This is not reported, this is something I saw myself. Smriti Irani had the courage to speak up in 2004 and condemn the riots, and then was asked under pressure to take her statement back within a few hours. Very quickly, the BJP High Command stepped in and you were asked to take your question back. Take your statement back. Aditya Thackeray, I'm hearing incredibly encouraging things from you about the union, about development, about young people. Now, this will be, some of what you said will be reported in the news tomorrow. I would just like to ask you to clarify what your vision is for the future if you were to have a say in the policy of the Shiv Sena, or even what your personal vision is for young Muslim people, young Biharis, young people from Uttar Pradesh in Mumbai. To Arvind Kejriwal, to others from the Congress, there is, of course, a stated position on secularism, but how do you intend to flesh it out? Indian secularism is very different, say, from French secularism. Indian secularism is about all religions. It's not about not having religion. How do you intend to make it a concept that leads people rather than, the present divides?
Okay, let's take it one by one.
Can I start?
Yes.
I'm really happy you asked me this question because I've been very eager to voice it out and Rahul hasn't given me a chance.
You had your chance.
Sorry, kidding. No, but I think it's very important.
This is when the Neta just get back, okay? This
I'm
is
not
their
a Neta, I'm
opportunity.
22 years
Yes,
old.
please go on. You're getting there.
Yeah. Basically, I wouldn't dwell upon the past because I have just come into this field. However, just for a flashback, when we were in power in 95 to 99, firstly, there were no communal riots. Secondly, the flyovers, the expressway, and the development that we did were completely secular. There is no extra charge on anyone for any religion or any sect or any caste. Secondly, going to the present, I would like to clarify once again that the party stated just 2-3 days ago that we're not against any religion, we're against someone who can stand up against our country. In fact, when the Diwan Sahib of the Ajmer Dargah came up and stood up for our country very bravely, our MPs went and felicitated him in Ajmer. And he's going to come to our house and we will visit him probably there. If you see my team...
people from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh welcome in a Shiv Sena Maharashtra.
Of course they are. Listen, if you see my team consists of people who are 18, 19 years old, who've been working out there, not working out, but working there in Mumbai, in Maharashtra, and of course in other states like Kashmir, Rajasthan, Bihar, Haryana. And those guys who want to work towards development, saying, okay, this city is mine, I accept it, I will stay here and build this city for my future generations, for today and for tomorrow. All those people are welcome and welcome to work for the better of the state and the country. What we truly believe in is when we are in Maharashtra, we're Maharashtrians. When we are in Punjab, we're Punjabis. When we are in Bengal, we will talk for Bengal. But when we talk for India, we will talk for India. And that's the thought that we want to go ahead with.
So what comes first, Aditya, Maharashtra or India?
It's always Jai Hind, Jai Maharashtra. Jai Hind, Jai Delhi. And the end is Vande Mataram.
Okay, do you
then divorce yourself from the speeches that your grandfather made? I mean, it's fair enough if you think that your politics is going to be a new politics, but do you say that explicitly?
No, I wouldn't do that because whatever I am speaking today, and I am because of my grandfather and father and what they've taught me at home. It's almost like a university. And
this is the political question, Aditya.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure he was a lovely grandfather, but it's a political question.
It's a candid answer. I mean, yeah, I'm truth. And what I've learned from them is to always act for the people and hear the voices of the people. Of course, if you've seen all democracies around the world, parties evolve, parties have modernized themselves, like the New Labour, the New Tories. And I wouldn't call something as a New Labour or New Tories, but it's just a different mindset relating to a different time and the different needs of the country.
Okay, you also asked the question about the moral equivalence that's drawn between 84 and 2002. We can get Manish to answer that.
And specifically on Mr. Tytler's and Sajjan Kumar's involvement, actually.
There is no moral equivalence between any riots. You know, all riots, if they've taken place, people have died, and innocent people have died, is something which is reprehensible. You know, it needs to be condemned. There should have been a closure in terms of the judicial processes coming to a logical culmination, which unfortunately has not happened. And I hold no brief one way or the other, or make a distinction between a particular situation. And I've said this not once, but I've said this ad nauseum. But to come back to the specific question that you asked about the character of Indian pluralism, whether it is the division of the church and the state, or it is Sarvdharm Sambhav, as the Congress would like to articulate it. I think in our book, it is the latter. It is respect for all religions. And if India is secular today, or if India is pluralistic today, it is not because a particular political party or a bunch of political parties are pluralistic and others are not. The reason why India is secular and India is pluralistic is because the people of India are secular and pluralistic. And that is why it is always, and it will always be the case, that whenever India would be led, India would always be led from the center. They will never be led either from the extreme left to the extreme right. I think that is what really typifies, you know, the character, or really sort of underscores the whole concept of the idea of India, that the people of India are intrinsically secular.
Smriti, if there's 84, there's also 2002. She asked you a question about condemning what happened in Gujarat.
I believe Karuna is a lawyer, correct? And I'm sure lawyers base their conclusions on facts. There are certain facts, Karuna, that I want to place before you today. The 2002 riots are unfortunate, and that is something that all politicians across all party lines have spoken about. There are certain facts which need to be brought to the fore, especially given that tomorrow you will host the Chief Minister of Gujarat. On the 28th, when the riots broke off, the Chief Minister gave a shoot-at-sight order. And from the 1st onwards, 80,000 Hindus were arrested. Is that the sign of a Chief Minister who's communal? There is an India Today article that I would like to hear, quote, there was a huge rumor spread that dead bodies from Godhra were brought publicly so that violence could be instigated. And I quote India Today here because India Today reported that no such incident happened. There is a Supreme Court monitored investigation which has taken place and found absolutely no evidence with regards to the complicity of a particular politician that everybody loves to hate, but will nonetheless invite so that they can get the TRPs that they want. What I want to tell you, Karuna, with regards to riots, I agree with Manish. I don't think none of us want to sit here and do a body count comparison. Between 84 or 2002, or for that matter, the Nellie massacre in Assam or the 1980 massacre in Muradabad. None of us want to do that. But I think what one needs to take away from the statement of Narendra Modi is this, that don't be satisfied by just a verbal apology. Don't wait for a politician to say, oh, I'm sorry. If there is evidence found, then hang me in the public square. That is what he says. And I think that if we base our observations on facts which have presented themselves before the Supreme Court, before the investigating bodies, we will find that yes, many love to hate him, but at the end of the day, people have democratically elected him because they believe that he did and his office did the best that they can in challenging situations.
Okay, let's get Naman Pugalia to ask the next. I also want to get others in the audience to ask questions as well. So, yes, one line is fine.
I definitely believe that 2002 would not have happened if the people of 84 had been brought to book. Today we talk about an SIT for Gujarat, but they are still, everybody is roaming around scot-free and being rewarded for the people who were actually in the forefront. There's not a single police officer, not a single leader. Nobody's brought to book. They're being shielded even today. And I genuinely believe that if 84 had received justice or would receive justice, I'm sure 2002 would not have happened. And because of the way the SIT has come in and people have been brought to book, that is going to be a deterrent for the future. And this is what
people have been held accountable for 2002.
Ms. Badar, you have a coalition with the same party, firstly.
No,
and secondly, on Ms. Irani's
in 2002,
statement,
there are people who have been officers who have been arrested. There have been leaders who have been arrested. There have been people who have been brought to book.
Okay.
Can you tell me in 84
Manish,
you can even name one person?
From Punjab?
I mean, there were 30,000 Sikhs killed just in
Delhi
Delhi and all over India. And yet, there are certain parties who are rewarding those very people and shielding those very people. For 18 years, eyewitnesses' accounts, their
okay, a point has been raised. RPN, would you like to respond?
Certain parties are encouraging it.
I don't want to go into all the details. The whole country knows what happened. In 2002, in 84, everybody knows what happened. Well, I don't want to make this into a panel kind of discussion where we are all going about. But if Narendra Modi didn't do anything wrong, why are their own parties which are supporting him? Which are supporting them in Parliament? Don't want to support him for any other post. They should think, forget the courts. The people who are with the BJP feel uncomfortable to share a stage with him. So
you know, it's quite ironical that, no, just wait. It's quite ironical that, I'm sorry it's turning into a TV debate, but be rest assured none of us will pull each other's hair out. It's quite ironical that RPN wants to dismiss the fact that TV debates do take place and form a particular public opinion. And however, he will go by those so-called rumors in TV channels and decide whether Narendra Modi is acceptable within the NDA or not. I think that no, I don't think anybody, Mr. Singh, has made any such statement. I think what this particular platform is about, and correct me if I'm wrong, is about confronting the realities of the present, reconciling with the challenges that we faced as a nation in the past, and ensure that irrespective of our political and ideological differences, we ensure that such incidents don't get repeated in the future. I think that is the consensus, at least we can all come to.
Do you have something to say about
Just a second, can I add? just stepping out of my brief and coming into your shoes of the moderator, I think this debate is going on some issues that have been chewed too much for in the past. What we're here for is for the youth and for tomorrow, and let's try to get to that.
I agree with that.
I mean, it's for the youth that's watching us, they'll just switch television and TRPs might go down.
Don't obsess. Why is everybody else so worried on our behalf? Don't worry about
I'm just saying, let's come to the ideas of the future. Let the questions be of the ideas of the future, not the past.
Let's only apply our minds and having a good discussion. Just forget the ratings. Too much is made of them. You've asked enough questions. I must get Naman to ask the next question. I'm sorry. I will use my discretion as the moderator, Karuna. You must follow instructions. Get Naman to ask the next question.
Just Sanjeev Bhatt's evidence should be adjudicated on, and once
the
whitewashing process should
we'll have a separate discussion on this.
I have to answer this.
I know, but you know the audience
No. You have to allow me that much. You have to allow me that much. I'm sorry.
No, we can't have the session being held hostage in this fashion. I'm sorry.
No, Rahul, you have
Just
to allow
20
me
seconds.
to answer.
Okay,
you
20
have to
seconds.
allow me
We
to
must move
answer.
on.
Karuna, it's quite fascinating that here is a gentleman who is serving in the Indian Police Service, who has apparently killed a man in custody, framed an advocate of the High Court in a false drug case, manages to extract a BlackBerry from leaders of the opposition. Can I just finish?
This is not.
Can I just finish? Gets Blackberries and other facilities from the leader of opposition. His family member gets a ticket in the last assembly election to stand against the chief minister. After all that, I think end of the day what one needs to discuss, apart from your favorite topic, is also whether we want a governance or a government that will encourage rogue elements who seek to disturb the tranquility of a state. That is also a question that one needs to ponder over.
Okay, let's get Naman Pugalia to ask the next question.
सवाल 3 थे, बट समय की पाबंदी है तो एक ही पूछूंगा. हिंदी में बोल रहा हूँ अरविंद जी, तो सवाल आपसे है. परिपक्व राजनीति, आलोचना करना और सवाल पूछना इन चीज़ों तक सीमित नहीं रहती. और आप जानते हैं मुझसे शायद कुछ ज़्यादा कि विचारधारा पर, सुझावों पर, इन चीज़ों पर चुनाव जीते जाते हैं. जब आप राजनीति में उतरे तो युवा पीढ़ी को जो राजनीतिक दलों से थोड़ा खफा थी, उनको लगा कि आप कुछ एक नई विचारधारा राजनीति में लाएंगे, बट ऐसा हुआ नहीं. मैं जानना चाहता हूं कि आपकी पार्टी की विचारधारा क्या है और आप युवा के प्रति क्या राय रखते हैं और भारत के लिए आपकी पार्टी क्या करना चाहेगी.
पहली आपकी बात से मैं असहमत हूँ. आलोचना डेमोक्रेसी का बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट पार्ट होता है. आप उसको कम मत आंकिए. गलतियाँ निकालना बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट. प्रश्न पूछना तो डेमोक्रेसी का बहुत बड़ा हिस्सा होता है. आप कह रहे हैं प्रश्न पूछना और आलोचना करना ठीक नहीं है, वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, करना चाहिए. और आम आदमी का तो काम ही है. आम आदमी का तो काम है डेमोक्रेसी में प्रश्न पूछना, क्योंकि हमने चुन के भेजा इन सब लोगों को.
जी, मैं बस सिर्फ इतना कह रहा था कि सिर्फ सवाल पूछना.
आ रहा हूँ मैं. सवाल पूछना जरूरी है, आलोचना करना जरूरी है. हम अपना धर्म निभा रहे हैं. हमारा धर्म ये था, हमने अपना धर्म निभाया. 2 साल हो गए झक मारते मारते. रामलीला मैदान में झक मारी. अन्ना जी ने 3 बार अनशन किया, 1 बार मैंने अनशन किया. क्या मांग रहे थे? हम मांग रहे थे भ्रष्टाचार मुक्त भारत. गलत मांग रहे थे क्या?
और वो अनशन से हो जाएगा?
नहीं हुआ. क्यों नहीं होना चाहिए? अनशन से क्यों नहीं होना चाहिए? हम गलत मांग रहे थे क्या? अब आप कह रहे हो आपकी आइडियोलॉजी क्या है? किस तरह की आइडियोलॉजी? अगर हम ये कह रहे हैं कि भ्रष्टाचार मुक्त भारत, कई लोग ये प्रश्न पूछते हैं, आपकी तो केवल एक भ्रष्टाचार, एक 1 पॉइंट एजेंडा पार्टी है ये. 1 पॉइंट एजेंडा पार्टी है ये. मैं कहता हूँ बाकी एजेंडा पे भी बात करेंगे, लेकिन थ्योरेटिकली मान लेते हैं कि एक ही एजेंडा पार्टी है ये. मान लीजिए एक ही एजेंडा है हमारी पार्टी का. अगर एक पार्टी इस देश को 5 साल के अंदर भ्रष्टाचार से मुक्ति दिला सकती है, ये क्या छोटी बात है? अगर भ्रष्टाचार खत्म हो जाएगा तो शिक्षा सुधर जाएगी. भ्रष्टाचार खत्म हो जाएगा, स्वास्थ्य सुधर जाएगा. भ्रष्टाचार खत्म हो जाएगा, बिजली पानी सब सुधर जाएगा. अगर एक ही मुद्दे के ऊपर मान लीजिए चुनाव लड़ा जाता है, मान लीजिए हम भ्रष्टाचार की दवाई है हमारे पास और भ्रष्टाचार दूर कर सकते हैं, ये कोई छोटी बात नहीं है.
Okay, you've been waiting very anxiously. Please go ahead and ask your question. Bala Sahib.
My first question is about like election process. Let's go to. When we go to rural area and we see like how election process is happening, lot of alcohol, money power, muscle power, it is used like caste, religion. That has been like main focus when it comes down to. What are you thinking? What young India, how we want to give that hope and change? Second thing is
just one question. I think it's an important question you've touched. Let's get the panel to answer that. Can elections be fought in an honest fashion? Let's start with Manish. Can you fight an honest election given the current stipulations, or is black money just a fundamental part of the Indian electoral process?
I think the first thing that you need to possibly assess is how do you define an honest election? If your definition of an honest election is that can you fight it within the ceilings which are prescribed by the Election Commission of India, the answer to that is yes. If the question is that do people regularly violate those ceilings, the answer to that is again yes. Now the question which emerges is that then do you raise the ceiling?
No, the question is, can you fight the election without black money?
No. It's not a question of black money or white money. The question is that there's a legally stipulated ceiling. Are you exceeding that ceiling or are you keeping within that ceiling? That is the relevant question. And so therefore, I think, you really need to look at the entire gamut of electoral reforms. This is something which people have been grappling with since the early 90s. We've had various rounds of discussions all across. The last national consultation, I think, has almost culminated. We are going to have the next round in the Vigyan Bhavan. And this is something which is extremely fundamental to the health of Indian democracy, to see as to how can we make the electoral system as transparent as possible. Yes, there are flaws. There are people who regularly violate the ceilings which have been laid down by the Commission. But if your question is that is it possible to fight an election within the stipulated ceiling, the answer to that is yes.
But RPN, the question is simple. Can the election be fought without taking money from illicit sources? Can you fight an election with clean money? Did you fight your election with 100% clean money?
Definitely, Rahul. People can fight elections within the ceiling, as Manish said. There's a lot of money that is being used, black money, or as you say, people were using it over the ceiling. But you'll be surprised, the voter in India now, when I said in my opening remarks, it's become free and fair. When elections come, they say, जो भी पैसा देता है ले लो, पर वोट उसी को देंगे जो हमारे लिए काम करेगा. So those days are over when you gave somebody alcohol or you gave somebody
no, but why give money or alcohol?
But people,
stop giving it.
Those are the people who are giving it. They want to be in politics at any cost. There are people, even when I've never distributed alcohol anytime, any election that I've contested, you can find that out. You have a lot of people who can find that out. I've never distributed alcohol, but I've still won a few elections. And my opponents always use alcohol, but the people still vote for me. So it's not necessarily this kind of thing we have that people only, if you only distribute alcohol, you distribute money, you can win elections.
So it's good for you. They drink the alcohol of your opponents and they still vote for you.
Yeah, right. Last time, I'll tell you, last time the gentleman who contested the MP election against me had a lot of money, but he was a new candidate. He was parachuted from some other constituency. He spent so much money against me that I finally sent my own supporters. I said, why don't you guys dip into the honey pot?
Can I just add to that? Sorry. Here is where reinventing democracy comes in, because of course there's a lot of casteism that we see. It's a very sad part, black money and all. But when the youth comes into politics, I believe we can make a lot of change. And one important thing here is if the youth can vote at 18, why not contest elections at 18? In the UK, you can do that for the House of Commons.
I just want to make a small point कि हम गोल बातें तो कर सकते हैं इसके ऊपर, पर ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट मुद्दा है कि जिस तरह से राजनीति के अंदर ब्लैक मनी का रोल है, एक छोटा सा स्टेप हम ले सकते हैं कि अगर हर पॉलिटिकल पार्टी अपने सारे लिस्ट ऑफ डोनर्स को और एक्सपेंसेस को रेगुलरली हर महीने की पहली तारीख को अपनी वेबसाइट के ऊपर डाल दे. ये तो कर सकते हैं, करना चाहिए, क्यों नहीं कर सकते? हम लोगों ने करना चालू किया है, आम आदमी पार्टी कर रहे हैं, हम बहुत छोटे लोग हैं.
यूएस में ऐसे होता है.
Why can't all the other political parties put list of all the donors, चाहे 5 रुपए का डोनेशन आयो, let's not hide behind income tax act.
RPN wants to respond.
आप जो अरविंद केजरीवाल साहब कह रहे हैं बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं. There are talks of election, there are things of how to change the election processes. In fact, in our own party, we have formed a committee to how we
Why don't you do it on a voluntarily basis?
But we already have, all political parties have to declare all the donors.
No, but the fact is that's only a part of the donors. The real bulk of where the money comes from is never declared. And that's the problem.
Well, that's what you say, Rahul. You are in journalism. Why don't you catch them? You seem to be catching everybody. Catch them. If you think it's coming from so-and-so, it's very easy to say all this money is coming from known sources. Well,
but why should one need to catch them? Why don't you put it voluntarily? Why should Rahul need to catch them? Why don't you put it voluntarily?
No, we'll catch them.
We put it voluntarily, Arvind ji. We put it voluntarily. हम तो डर ही रहे हैं. हमारे को इनकम टैक्स पे जाके दिखाना पड़ता है कि इतना पैसा आया और इतना खर्च हुआ.
सर जी, इनकम टैक्स की रिटर्न को भी वेबसाइट पे डाल दीजिए.
Arvind, Manish wants to make a point.
Mr. Arvind Kejriwal has been, if I am correctly informed, a member of the Indian Revenue Service. And he possibly understands that political parties conduct themselves according to the laws which are made by Parliament. Some people may not believe in the laws which are made by Parliament. That's a different matter altogether. And under the Representation of People's Act, under the Income Tax Act, whatever statutory declarations have to be made, they are made by the Indian National Congress, and those are the statutory bodies which have been empowered by Parliament in order to exercise superintendence when it comes to accounts. So therefore, I think, if we believe in democracy, we also should believe that rule of law is intrinsic to how democracy functions.
Sir, बस एक छोटी सी चीज़ है. Sir, इसके पीछे मत छुपिए. Don't hide behind all this. Just one sec. Let me just complete.
It's not a
Let me just complete, sir. Let me just complete.
It's not a question of...
Sir, कानून आप ही तो बनाते हैं, sir.
Go ahead.
Sir, कानून आप ही लोग बनाते हैं.
Go ahead.
आपने कानून बना दिया कि 20,000 से कम की डोनेशन को दिखाने की जरूरत नहीं है. और आप सारी डोनेशंस को 20,000 से कम रखा जाता है और आपकी मेजर पोर्शन जो है उसके नीचे है. आप लिस्ट ऑफ डोनर्स दिखाते नहीं हैं. सर, आप वॉलंटरीली कर दीजिए, कानून बदल दीजिए. आपकी सरकार है सर, आप कानून बदल सकते हैं. अगर ये कानून इस देश में ब्लैक मनी को जनरेशन में मदद कर रहा है, अगर ये इस देश के अंदर राजनीति को खराब कर रहा है, बदल दीजिए उस कानून को सर.
देखिए, आपकी बात बिल्कुल, मैं आपकी बात से इत्तेफाक रखता हूँ कि अगर इस देश में एक आम सहमति बनती है कि जो चुनाव से जुड़े हुए कानून हैं या जो आयकर से जुड़े हुए कानून हैं, उनमें संशोधन करने की ज़रूरत है, उनमें बदलाव करने की ज़रूरत है, हम उस बदलाव का समर्थन करते हैं.
सब लोग चाहते हैं कि कानून बदलने चाहिए. सब लोग चाहते हैं.
समर्थन करते
सर, इस हॉल में तो आम सहमति है.
पर एक बात
इस हॉल के अंदर आम सहमति है सर.
पर मैं आपको एक बात कहना चाहता हूं.
आज तक वाले एक सर्वे भी करवा के दिखा देंगे आपको. देश चाहता है कि ब्लैक मनी का रोल खत्म हो सर.
अरविंद जी, अगर आपने अपनी बात कही है तो सुनने की भी क्षमता रखिए. एक बात अपने जहन में रखनी बहुत ज़रूरी है कि लोकतंत्र कानून के राज से चलता है, अराजकता से नहीं चलता. और इसलिए अगर हम इस मुल्क में अराजकता फैलाने की कोशिश करेंगे, if we try and create chaos and anarchy, we are not going to serve the purpose of broad basing and strengthening institutions.
But that's a charge that's often leveled against you, that your means are anarchic and you're trying to dismantle the system. When someone made the point that you're saying don't pay electricity bills, all you're trying to do, taking forward what Manish says, is cause anarchy.
सर, यही तो हमें गांधी जी ने सिखाया था. गांधी जी ने नमक कानून तोड़ा था. गांधी जी ने कहा था कि अगर कोई सरकार कानून बनाती है जो कि अन्यायपूर्ण है, जो कि गलत है, ये हर नागरिक का फर्ज है कि उस कानून को तोड़े. एंड दे शुड इनवाइट द पनिशमेंट अपॉन.
Ambedkar said later, Arvind.
Let me just complete.
Ambedkar said later that fasts should be banned because they cause anarchy. If you remember Gandhi, you must also remember Ambedkar.
बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर को उम्मीद नहीं थी कि आज़ादी के 60 साल के बाद भारत की ये दशा होगी. अदरवाइज बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर वो स्टेटमेंट कभी ना करते.
It's working. Go on.
Okay. हालांकि ये डिबेट जिस दिशा में जा रहा है, मैं इसको और आगे नहीं ले जाना चाहती थी, बट आई एम टू टेम्प्टेड टू आस्क यू वन क्वेश्चन कि आप जैसे पॉलिटिशियंस के मगर पढ़ते हैं, वैसे ही आम लोग जो ब्राइब्स देते हैं, आप उनके मगर क्यों नहीं पढ़ते हैं? जो काला धन जनता के मगर भी पढ़े ना आप. तो आप एक ही चीज़ के मगर आप पढ़े हुए हैं. और दूसरी बात जो मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूँगी कि आप जो कहते हैं जो काले धन से ही पार्टियाँ बनती हैं, इलेक्शंस जीते जाते हैं, और आप ये सब नहीं कर रहे हैं, तो जी आप कभी इलेक्शन जीतेंगे नहीं, तो आप रिफॉर्म्स कैसे लाएंगे? तो ये जो करप्शन है इतना डीप सी, ये नहीं कि हम लोग नहीं बदलने की कोशिश करी है और हम नहीं बदलना चाहते हैं. बहुत सारे अच्छे लोग और अच्छी पार्टियां भी हैं जिन्होंने सिस्टम को बदलने की कोशिश की है, लेकिन आई एम श्योर आप भी समझते हैं कि रॉट इज़ नॉट ओनली एट द टॉप, इट इज़ राइट डाउन टिल द बॉटम. तो ये अकेले टॉप के ऊपर यू कीप गोइंग एट द टॉप, यू हैव टू स्टार्ट फ्रॉम द बॉटम ऑफ द पिरामिड एंड गो ऑल द वे अप टू द टॉप टू द बॉटम टू एवरीवेयर. सो आप जो सिर्फ पॉलिटिशियंस को एक उसमें ना डालें, उसमें जो अच्छे वाले हैं उनके अच्छे काम के बारे बोले, कोई ब्यूरोक्रेट्स के बारे, कोई आम जनता जो जाके पैसे देती है, जो इस करप्शन को इनकरेज करती है, उनको भी तो कुछ ज्ञान अपना देना.
ओके अरविंद,
आपके 3 प्रश्न हैं. एक आपने कहा कि जो रिश्वत देते हैं उनको भी पकड़ा जाना चाहिए. कौन पकड़ेगा? आप ही तो पकड़ेंगे, आप ही की तो सरकारें हैं. एक मिनट.
क्यों पकड़ेंगे? आप बैठे हो, आप भी उनके बारे बोले ना.
मैं तो कह रहा हूँ रिश्वत लेने और देने वालों दोनों को पकड़िए।
हाँ,
हम तो कह रहे हैं
तो
हेलीकॉप्टर डील के अंदर, हेलीकॉप्टर डील के अंदर जिसने पैसा दिया जिसने लिया दोनों को पकड़िए। 2G घोटाले के अंदर जिसने पैसा दिया लिया दोनों को आप पकड़ते ही नहीं है। दूसरी
आप सिर्फ 2G की क्यों बात करते हैं? आप उसकी बात करें जो पुलिस वैन को पैसे खिला के अपनी डॉटर इन लॉ को जला देते हैं, लेकिन पैसे दे देते हैं।
आपसे बात कर रहे हैं तो आप कहते हो पुलिस वाले को पकड़ो। पुलिस वाले से बात कहते हैं जब प्रधानमंत्री पैसे खा रहा है तो हम तो बहुत छोटे लोग हैं।
अपनी डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस किया है,
वो कहता है उसको पकड़ो पहले, वो कहता है उसको पकड़ो पहले।
पुलिस के मगर जाए, लेकिन
सर जी आपकी सरकार है, आप तो सबको पकड़ सकते हैं, आप क्यों नहीं पकड़ते हैं? एक चीज
जनता भी तो पकड़ सकती है ना। आप भी तो
आप हमेशा प्रधानमंत्री जी पे उंगली उठा देते हैं। मुझे भी कई लोग कहते हैं कि आपकी पार्टी में बहुत लोग पैसा खा लिए हैं, पर हम आपको इस पे आरोप नहीं लगाते हैं। आप राजनीति में नए आए हैं
सर। आप
उंगली उठानी बड़ी आसान होती है, हमेशा याद रखना चाहिए 3 उंगली अपने तरफ होती है।
सर मैं आपको कह रहा हूँ हमारी पार्टी में जितने चोर हैं सबको जेल डाल दीजिए। आपकी तो सरकार है, आपकी तो सरकार है, आप जेल क्यों नहीं डालते? सबको जालिए ना। मैं आपके साथ खड़ा हूँ सर, हमारी पार्टी में जितने चोर हैं सबको जेल में डाल दीजिए आप। मैं आपके साथ खड़ा हूँ, मैं कभी उनको प्रोटेक्ट नहीं करूंगा।
आप राजनीति में आए हैं, अभी पहले बार टिकट की घोषणा तो करिए दिल्ली में, हम देखेंगे कितने अच्छे लोग आप लाते हैं, कितना परिवर्तन आप करते हैं।
सर ये 120 करोड़ लोगों का देश है, इसमें बच्चों को टिकट नहीं मिलेगी। अब अभी तक केवल बच्चों को, भाइयों को, बहनों को ही टिकट मिली है। परिवार 120 करोड़ रुपए का देश, 543 अच्छे लोग दे सकता है सर।
जिन लोगों ने उन भाइयों बहनों और बीवियों को वोट करके भेजा है, आप प्लीज उनकी इंटेलिजेंस को इतना अंडरमाइन ना करें। उनको भी 20 लोगों के बीच में से चुन के उन्होंने भेजा है, सो आप उन लोगों की इंटेलिजेंस को इतना अंडरमाइन ना करिए।